I woke up on my 32nd birthday with a smile, excited about the surprise Melissa had been teasing all week. Our apartment was unusually quiet. My heart dropped when I spotted a folded note on the kitchen counter next to her keys. Opening it with trembling hands, I read 6 devastating words: "I found someone better. I am sorry, goodbye." A wave of shock washed over me as I stood frozen. But instead of screaming or breaking down, I made a decision that would change everything. Let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. If you have ever faced betrayal, this story might help you heal. Hit subscribe and like to join me on this journey of turning pain into power. I built my life from the ground up. As a software developer, I worked hard to climb from my humble beginnings in a small Midwest town to a comfortable life in Seattle. My parents raised me to value honesty and hard work, qualities I carried into adulthood and my career at a growing tech company. Life was good, but I always felt something was missing. Until I met Melissa. 3 years ago at my college roommate Brian's wedding, I spotted her across the reception hall. Melissa stood out immediately with her captivating green eyes and confident laugh. When our mutual friend introduced us, conversation flowed effortlessly. She was brilliant, a marketing executive who shared my ambition and love for travel. We exchanged numbers, and I called her the very next day. Our romance progressed quickly. After just 3 dates, I knew there was something special between us. We shared similar values and dreams, finishing each other's sentences and staying up until sunrise just talking. 6 months later, she moved into my apartment, bringing her warmth and energy into every room. Our friends commented on how perfectly matched we seemed, always supporting each other through career challenges and personal goals. On our 2nd anniversary, I planned the proposal carefully. I reserved the small Italian restaurant where we had our first date, arranged for her favorite flowers to be on the table, and worked with the chef to hide the ring in her dessert. When she found it, tears filled her eyes as she nodded yes before I even finished asking. That night, holding her in my arms, I truly believed we would spend forever together. Life as an engaged couple was everything I had hoped for. We traveled to Japan and Italy, took cooking classes together, and cheered each other on professionally. Melissa received a promotion at her marketing firm while I developed a new software platform that earned recognition in our industry. We spent weekends hiking the nearby mountains or hosting dinner parties for our growing circle of friends. On Sunday mornings, we would plan our future over coffee, talking about the house we would buy and the family we hoped to start. Wedding planning became our focus in recent months. We had set a date for October, just 5 months away. The venue, an elegant converted barn outside the city, was booked and partially paid for. Melissa chose her dress, we selected a caterer, and sent out save the dates to 100 guests. Everything was falling into place for what should have been the happiest day of our lives. The week before my birthday, I noticed subtle changes in Melissa's behavior. She stayed at work later than usual, was constantly checking her phone, and seemed distant during our conversations. When I asked if something was bothering her, she brushed it off as work stress and promised everything was fine. I chose to believe her, suppressing the unease growing in my stomach. The evening before my birthday, Melissa kissed me goodnight with unusual intensity. She whispered that she had a special surprise planned for tomorrow that would change our lives. I fell asleep, filled with anticipation, imagining what thoughtful gift or experience she might have arranged. Never could I have predicted the reality that awaited me. End of Lash. NS17. Buy.com. That birthday morning, I reached across the bed to find her side empty and cold. The apartment held an unusual stillness that immediately set my nerves on edge. Walking to the kitchen for coffee, I spotted her keys on the counter, something she never forgot to take. Beside them lay a folded piece of paper with my name written in her elegant handwriting. The engagement ring I had saved for months to buy sat atop the note, catching the morning sunlight in cruel irony. With shaking hands, I unfolded the paper, expecting perhaps directions to a surprise breakfast or scavenger hunt. Instead, those 6 heartless words stared back at me. I found someone better. I am sorry. Goodbye. My mind went blank as the room seemed to spin around me. I had to read the note 3 times before the reality began to sink in. 3 years of love, trust, and shared dreams reduced to 6 words on a slip of paper. No explanation, no proper goodbye, not even the courtesy of a face-to-face conversation. Just those cold final words and the returned symbol of our commitment. Strangely, after the initial shock, I felt an unusual calmness wash over me. No tears came, no urge to scream or break things. Just a hollow stillness and an odd clarity that I had never experienced before. In that moment of betrayal, something fundamental shifted inside me. Reaching for my phone, I discovered Melissa had blocked me on every platform. Her Instagram, Facebook, and even her phone number returned error messages when I attempted to contact her. It was as if she had erased me from her digital life with clinical precision. Walking through our apartment in a daze, I noticed several items missing. The expensive watch I had given her for Christmas, the designer bag she collected, and the gold necklace from her grandmother were all gone. She had clearly planned this exit thoroughly, taking only what she considered valuable and easily portable. My phone rang around noon, displaying Angela's name. Angela was Melissa's best friend, and my heart jumped, thinking perhaps she had information or an explanation. When I answered, Angela's voice was tight with discomfort. "Chuck, I am so sorry," she said, clearly struggling with her words. "I did not know until yesterday. I swear I would have told you if I had known sooner." Through a painful conversation, Angela revealed that Melissa had been seeing someone from her office for nearly 4 months. His name was Jason, a new client she had been assigned to work with. According to Angela, Melissa had been planning her exit for weeks, waiting until my birthday to execute her escape with maximum impact. She thought it would be easier this way, Angela explained weakly. A clean break. Nothing about this felt clean. It felt calculated, cruel, and cowardly. But as I thanked Angela for her honesty and hung up, that strange calm remained. In the void where anger should have been, a new resolution was forming. My first instinct was to call Melissa repeatedly until she answered, to demand explanations and beg her to reconsider. The urge to text her to pour out my confusion and heartbreak was nearly overwhelming. I even drove halfway to her office before pulling over in a parking lot, realizing the futility and indignity of such an approach. Sitting in my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, a moment of clarity struck me. Begging would not bring her back, and even if it did, could I ever trust her again? Would I want someone who could discard our relationship so callously? In that parking lot, I made the decision that would define my response to her betrayal. Absolute silence. Instead of emotional reactions, I chose strategic action. My first step was visiting my bank that same afternoon. I separated our joint accounts, transferred my portion to a new account, and removed her as an authorized user on my credit cards. The financial advisor looked at me with sympathy when I explained the situation, briefly expediting the process without questions. The following day, I contacted all our wedding vendors. The venue coordinator expressed genuine sympathy when I explained the cancellation. Although I lost several non-refundable deposits totaling over $5,000, the financial hit seemed trivial compared to the emotional one. I donated our planned wedding favors, custom coffee beans in small burlap bags, to a local shelter. I called my boss and requested a week off, something I had never done spontaneously in my 5 years with the company. To his credit, he asked no questions when I explained I was dealing with a personal situation. That week became crucial for processing my emotions privately away from well-meaning colleagues and friends. During those 7 days, I developed a routine to channel my grief. Each morning began with punishing workouts at a gym across town where I was unlikely to encounter mutual friends. I pushed my body to exhaustion, finding that physical pain provided temporary relief from emotional agony. Afternoons were spent hiking remote trails, the solitude and natural beauty gradually restoring my sense of perspective. I started a private journal, writing every thought and feeling I might have texted or told Melissa. Some entries were rage-filled, others devastatingly sad. But each one helped purge emotions without breaking my silence toward her. This journal became my confidant, allowing me to process my pain without giving her the satisfaction of knowing its depth. Friends began reaching out, having heard rumors of our split. Brian, my closest friend, came over with beer and offered to help trash talk that heartless woman. Instead of indulging in bitterness, I surprised myself by asking him to respect my decision not to speak negatively about Melissa. My silence would extend to not tarnishing her name, not out of loyalty to her, but out of respect for my own dignity. As weeks passed, I channeled my energy into comprehensive self-improvement. I found a therapist specializing in betrayal trauma, attending weekly sessions, to untangle the complex emotions her abandonment triggered. Through therapy, I confronted not just the pain of Melissa's betrayal, but also deeper insecurities that had shaped my relationships. Physical transformation became another focus. I revamped my fitness routine with the help of a personal trainer, working through my grief through challenging workouts. My diet improved dramatically as I learned to cook nutritious meals for myself, a skill I had neglected, while Melissa handled most of our cooking. The physical changes were gradual but significant, reflecting the internal strength I was building. My apartment still filled with reminders of Melissa needed transformation too. I donated furniture we had chosen together and redecorated with a style truly my own. Each change, from the new sectional sofa to the abstract art on the walls, represented reclaiming my space and identity. After a month of healing, I updated my wardrobe not as a superficial change but as an outward expression of my evolving self. Gone were the safe, conventional clothes Melissa had often selected, replaced by styles that felt authentically me. These weren't changes made to impress her or spark jealousy, but steps toward rebuilding my identity, independent of her influence. Professional growth became another avenue for positive change. I enrolled in an advanced coding boot camp, enhancing my technical skills and connecting with ambitious professionals. The intensive weekend program challenged me intellectually, providing healthy distraction and concrete achievements during a time when my personal life felt shattered. When my boss offered a promotion that would require more responsibility and occasional travel, I accepted immediately. 6 months earlier, I had declined this same opportunity, worried about spending time away from Melissa. Now the prospect of building my career and occasionally leaving the city filled with her memories felt liberating rather than frightening. The hardest part of my silence was enduring the rumors that inevitably circulated. Through mutual friends, I heard that Melissa was telling people I had been emotionally unavailable, that our relationship had been troubled for months. Some acquaintances looked at me with pity, clearly believing her version of events. Rather than defending myself or correcting the narrative, I let my actions and renewed energy speak for me. 3 months passed without a single word exchanged between us. No calls, no texts, no social media interactions. During this time, I transformed from a heartbroken fiancé to a stronger, more confident version of myself. My silence was not about punishment or manipulation. It was about reclaiming my power and healing on my own terms. As painful as her betrayal had been, it forced me to build resilience I never knew I possessed. 4 months after Melissa's departure, my company hosted a networking event for clients and partners at an upscale downtown hotel. As the lead developer on our newest project, my attendance was mandatory. Dressed in a tailored navy suit that reflected my new confidence, I worked the room with an ease that surprised even me, discussing our platform with potential clients and industry peers. Midway through the evening, a familiar laugh cut through the ambient noise, stopping me mid-sentence. Across the crowded ballroom stood Melissa, radiant in a black dress, her hand resting possessively on the arm of a tall man in an expensive suit. My client noticed my momentary distraction and followed my gaze. "That is Jason Reynolds," he explained. "He is actually my business partner. Do you know him?" Before I could respond, Melissa spotted me. Her smile faltered briefly before she composed herself, whispering something to Jason. They began making their way toward us, and I felt my heart hammering against my ribs. 4 months of silence were about to end in the most public setting possible. "Chuck," Melissa said, her voice carrying a forced lightness. "What a surprise to see you here." Jason extended his hand with confident familiarity. "Jason Reynolds. Great to meet you." "Chuck Porter," I replied, shaking his hand firmly. "I am leading the development team for the new analytics platform." The irony was almost too perfect. Jason's company was considering adopting our software, which meant I would potentially be working on a project connected to the man Melissa had left me for. I maintained eye contact and a professional demeanor, refusing to show a trace of the emotional turmoil beneath my composed exterior. "You look different," Melissa observed her eyes, taking in my transformed appearance. The implicit question hung in the air: was this change because of her? Life moves forward, I replied, simply neither confirming nor denying her unspoken assumption. How have you been, Melissa? The small talk that followed was excruciating in its banality. Weather work, mutual acquaintances, all discussed, as if we were distant colleagues, rather than former soulmates. Throughout the exchange, I noticed Jason checking his watch repeatedly and mentioning the high-profile clients he worked with, dropping names and figures that seemed designed to impress. When my client mentioned the success of our recent project launch and the industry recognition it had received, I noticed Melissa's expression change subtly. She had not known about this achievement, this evidence that I was thriving professionally despite her absence. We should catch up properly sometime, she suggested, as the conversation wound down, a new uncertainty in her voice. Perhaps I answered non-committally before excusing myself to speak with another colleague, leaving her standing there with a slightly bewildered expression. Later that evening, as I was preparing to leave, my phone buzzed with a text from an unblocked number. I instantly recognized. I did not expect to see you tonight. You seem to be doing well. I slipped my phone back into my pocket without responding. By the time I reached my apartment, 3 more messages had arrived. It was good seeing you. You look great. Jason is not what I thought. I made a mistake. Can we talk, please? Over the next week, Melissa's texts became increasingly frequent and desperate. Through her messages, a picture emerged of a relationship crumbling under the weight of reality. Jason, she revealed, had exaggerated his financial stability and career success. The luxurious lifestyle he had promised was sustained through credit card debt and precarious investments. I read each message but maintained my silence, not out of cruelty but from a place of self-preservation. Opening that door even slightly felt dangerous to the peace I had worked so hard to build. 10 days after our encounter, Angela called me again. Over coffee, she revealed what Melissa would not admit in her texts. Jason had proven controlling and jealous, monitoring her calls and criticizing her friends. The passionate romance that had seemed worth sacrificing our relationship for had devolved into constant arguments and recriminations. She talks about you all the time, Angela admitted reluctantly. She keeps saying it was the biggest mistake of her life. I thanked Angela for her honesty, but offered no comment on Melissa's situation. My sympathy for her predicament was genuine but distant, like concern for an old friend rather than a former fiancé. That same week, our development team was notified that our platform had been selected as a finalist for a prestigious Industry Innovation Award. The ceremony would take place in San Francisco the following month, with all key team members attending. This recognition represented the culmination of work I had poured myself into during the darkest days of my heartbreak. The news of the nomination apparently reached Melissa, as her next text congratulated me and mentioned how proud she was. The message concluded with, "I miss the life we had. I miss us." As I prepared for the awards ceremony, focusing on my presentation and the networking opportunities it would bring, Melissa's messages became more direct. She asked to meet, suggested coffee at our old favorite cafe, even mentioned specific memories from our relationship, as if testing whether the emotional hook still caught in my heart. The final breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday evening. I returned from work to find Melissa sitting on the floor outside my apartment door, makeup smudged from crying, clutching a small gift bag. Seeing her there, vulnerable and clearly distraught, tested my resolve like nothing before. "Chuck," she said, rising quickly to her feet. "Please, just give me 5 minutes." Standing in that hallway, looking at the woman I had once planned to marry, I felt an unexpected sense of calm. The anger had faded, replaced by something more powerful: indifference. In that moment, I realized my silence had achieved what no words could have: true emotional freedom. "You can come in," I said, unlocking my door. "But just for a few minutes." As Melissa stepped into my redesigned apartment, her eyes widened at the changes. Gone were the furnishings we had chosen together, replaced by pieces that reflected my personal taste. The wall that once displayed our engagement photos now featured abstract art and travel photography from trips I had taken alone. Everything looks so different, she said softly, standing awkwardly in the space that had once been her home too. Would you like some water? I offered, maintaining a polite distance. When she nodded, I brought her a glass, gesturing toward the couch while taking the chair opposite. The physical space between us mirrored the emotional gulf her actions had created. I made a terrible mistake, Chuck, she began, voice breaking. Jason was not who he pretended to be. He lied about everything: his job, his finances, even his divorce being finalized. She paused, wiping away tears. I threw away everything we had for a fantasy that turned into a nightmare. I listened, without interrupting, noting how strange it felt to finally hear her voice after months of silence. The woman sitting across from me, despite her familiar features, seemed like a stranger now. I miss our life together, she continued, reaching for the gift bag beside her. I miss your kindness, your stability, your honesty. I brought this because it reminded me of happier times. From the bag, she withdrew a small wooden box I recognized immediately. It was a handcrafted puzzle box I had given her on our first anniversary, containing a necklace and a note promising forever. The sight of it touched something in me, but not in the way she clearly hoped. I appreciate you returning this, I said calmly. But I need to be honest with you, Melissa. What happened between us cannot be undone. Her face fell as I continued. The note you left me on my birthday forced me to rebuild myself from scratch. It was the most painful experience of my life, but also the most transformative. I know I hurt you, she interrupted desperately. But people make mistakes. We could start over, go to counseling. The love we had does not just disappear. You are right, I acknowledged. The love does not disappear overnight. It fades gradually as trust is broken and respect is lost. That is what happened when you chose to leave the way you did. Carefully, I explained how her betrayal had forced me to find strength I never knew existed. How the silence I maintained was not about punishing her, but about protecting my own healing process. How paradoxically her abandonment had led me to discover parts of myself that had been suppressed in our relationship. I forgive you, I told her sincerely. But forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. Some bridges once burned cannot be rebuilt. Tears streamed down her face as the reality of my words sank in. Is there nothing I can say to change your mind? It is not about saying the right words, I explained gently. It is about understanding that we cannot go backward. The person I was when we were engaged no longer exists, and I suspect the same is true for you. Before she left, I retrieved a small box containing the few belongings she had left behind, items without monetary value, but with sentimental attachments: old birthday cards, a sweater from her university, photos of her family. Passing them to her felt like closing a chapter definitively without bitterness. At my door, she turned for one last appeal. Will you at least think about it? I wish you healing and happiness, Melissa, I replied with genuine compassion. But my future lies elsewhere. After she left, I sat alone in my apartment, feeling an unexpected lightness. The conversation had confirmed what months of silence had been building toward. True healing comes from within, not from revenge or even reconciliation. 2 weeks later, at a dinner party hosted by my colleague Mark, I met Sarah, a graphic designer, with an easy laugh and thoughtful questions. Our conversation flowed naturally, touching on books, travel, and our creative processes. Unlike my immediate attraction to Melissa, years ago my connection with Sarah developed slowly and authentically. We started as friends, meeting for coffee to discuss a website design she was working on for my side project. There was no rush, no whirlwind romance, just a gradual building of trust and mutual respect. I approached this new relationship with hard-earned wisdom, valuing honesty and clear communication above romantic gestures or intense passion. Sarah had her own history of heartbreak, and we spoke openly about our past relationships and the lessons learned. When I finally shared the full story of Melissa's departure, Sarah listened without judgment, appreciating my vulnerability rather than seeing it as weakness. After 3 months of friendship, our relationship evolved naturally into something more. Our first kiss was not accompanied by fireworks or dramatic declarations, but by a quiet certainty that we were building something meaningful together. 6 months after Melissa stood at my door begging for another chance, I found myself truly happy in my new relationship, my career, and most importantly in myself. The industry award now sat on my office shelf, a testament to professional growth, born from personal pain. On a crisp fall day, the same season when Melissa and I would have been married, I ran into her at a local farmer's market. She was alone, looking thinner and tired. When our eyes met, I felt no surge of pain or lingering attachment, just a calm acknowledgement of our shared past. We exchanged brief pleasantries, and I noticed her glance at Sarah, who was selecting apples a few stalls away. There was sadness in Melissa's eyes, but also a resigned acceptance. "I am glad you found happiness," she said, and I believed she meant it. "I hope you find yours too," I replied sincerely. Walking away, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought me to this point. The note that shattered my world had ultimately forced me to rebuild it stronger. The silence I maintained had spoken volumes about self-respect and dignity. The betrayal that once defined my story had become merely a chapter in it, not the conclusion. The deepest lesson I learned was that responding to betrayal with grace, rather than vengeance, does not make you weak. It reveals a strength of character that no one can take from you. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead us to the best transformations, if we have the courage to embrace the painful process of growth. Have you ever experienced betrayal that ultimately led to positive change in your life? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience and growth. Share with someone who might need to hear that silence can sometimes be the most powerful response to betrayal. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the best response is no response at all, but rather the quiet dignity of moving forward.